All right, Jim Nantz is here, one of the voices of football in my lifetime. Here's a stat via his employer, CBS, obviously. In the Josh Allen Patrick Mahomes era, which is since 2020, this is the 10th time the two teams have met. Eight of those have had Jim Nantz on the call, including seven in a row. Four of those are playoff games. It happens again on Sunday. He'll be the voice of it. What's going on, Jim?
Hey, listen, I'm really happy to be here with you, Kevin, be able to talk about the game, spend some time with you. My heart goes out to you, brother.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
just think the world of you. And yeah, I'm excited about the game, but right now I'm focused on having a chance to visit with you.
I appreciate that. My dad, Jim Clark, was an amazing person. I'm frankly in his office right now, and the TV's right here. And one of the things I just thought about was, this game would be on Sunday, if he, and that's tough. But he loved ball, and like I told you off air, the only two things he has on his desk here in Orlando, pictures of the grandkids and football preview magazines. And so that's what he was all about. That's a life well lived. And so I can't think of anything that is more fitting of a tribute than to do this. And I was doing ESPN radio on Sunday morning, and I was just laughing because I had to ask out because my mom had told me the news, and all I could hear was his voice saying, "Get back! Would you get back to work? Would you talk about football for a living? This is not hard." And he obviously was a historian and all that stuff, and he loved what he did. And so I think his philosophy was always, if you love what you do, you want to keep doing it. And so I think that doing this kind of thing, Jim, is as good a tribute as you can possibly have.
How much joy did you bring to him? Think about that for a minute. Being really
Yeah.
kind of in the same realm as a communicator, how
Yep.
much did he monitor everything that you did?
Yeah. So I ran into some neighbors last night who talked about how proud of me he was, that he shared when I was on TV and all that stuff, with them quite a bit, and that was a point of pride for him. Um, Even looking back at our text messages last night, um, from the past couple months, every time I was on a show or this show was on ESPN two, there were two pieces. First of all, he would tell me how proud he was of me, and then he would tell me to wear a tie. That was the big thing, and I always laugh because when I did my first NFL Live last summer, ever, Kevin Nagandi was the host, and he sent me this block of text about how proud he was of me doing ESPN and all that stuff. And then the last text, last part of the text was, Kevin Nagandi's tie was much tighter than yours. You really have to learn how to tie a knot from Kevin Nagandi. And so, um, I think that was such a huge part of the last few years for us, was talking about that stuff. And then having Teddy, my son, 2.5 years ago, was special too, because there's a lot of photos around here. I mean, frankly, my dad was 76 years old, 77, and most of the photos in his dining room and all that stuff are from a long time ago, except for these Teddy photos. And so I think he was immensely proud of Teddy, and he was an amazing dad. And I think that one of the things, Jim, is that he encouraged everything. He, whatever it was, he encouraged it. When I said he loved football, but when I said I love football, it was immediately, we're going to the old sombrero to watch Brett Favre play the Bucks. It was immediately, hey, we're gonna go see Spurrier's Gators. Let's go, get in the car, let's go. We're gonna encourage everything. And I think that to me, besides telling me how proud he was of me all the time, that was the most encouraging part, and part of the reason that I do what I do now is that if I said to him, um, I like this, we would dive headfirst into it. And that wasn't just football. That was, guitars. That was hockey. That was WWF Raw. I mean, I promise you, Jim Clark was not a WWF Raw guy, but there we were watching The Rock and Stone Cold and Mankind in 1998. And so I think if I could give anybody any advice on how to be a good dad, it's that. It's just taking what your kids are passionate about and making it, um, and taking it to the fullest extent, and making them feel valued.
Nothing meant more to me than hearing my mom and dad both of whom are gone now. My dad passed first. I lost my mom 3 years ago this month. Nothing meant more to me than hearing them say they were proud. They were proud. And when I is he processed this, and I'm still processing. My dad's been gone for 17 years. Mom's been gone 3. I realize now I strove to make them proud. That was the driver for me. I had big goals. I had obsessions with trying to get
Yeah.
to where I could one day maybe be recognized by CBS, specifically CBS. I wanted to work for CBS since I was a little boy. So I had a lot of was a goal mindset about everything. But in the end, boiling it down, it was about wanting to make them proud. And I have to tell you, I still say a prayer every day that I'm giving it my best to make them proud. That never goes away. No matter how many times you pick up that microphone and everything you're going to do marching on, you have your mom, but you're going to, I think you'll feel that. I don't know if that hits home with you at all, Kevin, but
No, it
making
does.
them proud was a driver for me. And I can tell it was for you too. Make it,
Without a doubt. I mean, without it, it was the driver. It was the driver of making my mom and dad proud. They're both old school newspaper people. They love journalism. They love the idea. First of all, journalism is fun. Like that was the only reason I ever wanted to do it. Is you'd see they'd come home with the best stories of all time, or they would just be doing that. Hey, I just came back from doing a week in so and so. Or my dad, he wrote 9 books. He would just sit here and just find out this. Literally on this desk right now. I don't even know what he was working on, just a ton of notes on, and he wasn't a sports historian, but a ton of notes on Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson. And you can just imagine him in the last few weeks of his life looking at that stuff and having a blast and discovering these little nuggets and stuff like that. And so for me, he was fuel. He was so obsessed with his work and his craft. And that was imparted on me. And so now looking at it and thinking about it the last couple of days, Jim, I all I want to do is channel all the energy that he gave me, obsession, loving to communicate, all of that stuff, and turning it into the best career possible. It's the reason I wanted to do this episode. The best tribute possible is to keep going. The best tribute possible is to take all of the messages that he sent me every time I was on TV or did a good podcast or wrote a good story and just replay those in my head and just know that he's proud of me wherever he may be.
one of the best pieces of advice I ever got came from Arnold Palmer in a moment like this. My dad had not passed yet, but he was failing, and I was facing some rather large career decisions. Actually, it was the opportunity to move over to news and leave the boyhood dream. This is all I ever wanted to do is
Yeah.
work for CBS Sports, but now I had an opportunity to work for CBS News and leave this behind. And it was a big opportunity financially and beyond, but that wasn't what was in my heart. And I grieved because my dad wasn't capable of being able to consult me on this. He was deep down the road on with his battle with Alzheimer's. But there was some, attention about this decision was in the media, and I ended up saying, I'm not taking the money, and that's not the driver for me. I have the job I always wanted. I'm staying with sports. So shortly thereafter, I mean, maybe 2 weeks after that decision had been played out in the press, I saw Arnold at Augusta. It was one of his last times as a competitor, and he was on the putting green. And he looked over, he saw me, and he said, "Hey, come over here." And I had a beneficiary of a wonderful friendship with Arnold. It was so deep that I actually one day I did his eulogy. I was one of his eulogists at his funeral. So anyway, he came over and he walked me through it. How come you made this decision? How did you come to it? And I told him it was hard. He said, "Why was it hard?" And I said, "Because my dad wasn't there to be able to talk it through." He says, "No, you don't understand. Your dad made that decision with you." I said, "How's that?" He said, "He was talking to you the whole time. You just didn't realize it. He was right here." And Arnold had a big hand, like a baseball mitt. And he reached and all of a sudden almost knocked me over. He kept hitting me right here in the heart. He says, "Jim, he was right here. He's right here. He's always going to be right here." You were listening to him, and you made that decision in concert with your father. Don't ever forget, for as long as you're alive and you face moments in your lifetime you don't know what to do, just remember, he's right here.
That's
That's the
beautiful.
best advice I can tell you. As you march on, your career is magical, hugely successful. It's only going to get bigger. You got so many roads to conquer and great things to go out there and achieve. He's still going to be right there, just like Arnold said.
The only thing that is hitting me over and over again, and I'm sure you still have this, and I don't think it's ever going to go away, is anytime something happens in football or sports or life or Florida politics in the last 24 hours, I want to text my dad about it. And when the Brian Kelly news came down, on Sunday, God, he would have loved to talk about that. He would have loved to talk about who the next coach of Florida State's going to be and all that stuff. And my impulse is still, I'm going to call dad. And it's been 48 hours, and I think it's going to be 48 years of me hitting that wall and just saying, I have to take what he gave me and use that forward. There's always going to be the impulse to call dad and talk to him.
That never
That's
goes away. That will never leave you.
all right. Again, I think he would want to talk ball if you were here, and so let's do a little bit here. Let's start here on the football. Mahomes and Allen. Mahomes to me, it seemed, and you've covered so many amazing quarterbacks, and all of them have their different idiosyncrasies, and you can never give up on a play, and almost got to watch them in some crazy. Mahomes to me, you can't give up on the play. You have to watch. It seems like everything is happening all at once. I'm curious, just as a broadcaster, Jim, what calling Mahomes feels like.
Well, you definitely have to have your eyes open because he's going to pull off some things
Yep.
that don't you just don't believe, and you may miss some of the nuance if you're not careful. I had a game a couple weeks ago where they hosted the Raiders. You might remember that one. Vegas put
Yep.
up
I sure
all
do.
three first downs in the game, but Patrick welcomed back Rashee, and they connected for a couple of touchdowns. But there's a point in the game where he did another one of those no-look passes
Yep.
where he was looking this way and he went over here. And if you're not really, it's hard. From the booth, you see all 22 on the field, and you also have a giant monitor in front of you. But, sometimes you're looking downfield to see if someone's breaking open. But had I not seen this, it would have been just another like normal pass. And he'd had some on the Monday night game against Washington where you think, well, you better be careful. You can't give up on the play because he has those improvisational talents that are so rare. And I heard Troy talk about his baseball background has
Yeah.
really benefited him. And it is true. So to me, that's part of the magic. What's hard to believe is that you get in the middle of these careers that are iconic, and I have been fortunate enough to be around, called the great majority of the matchups between Tom and Peyton. We're the
Hmm.
AFC network.
Yeah.
A blessing. We had their careers, until Tom went to Tampa. We had
Yeah.
their careers largely in the AFC. These two in the AFC. So it's landed under our watch in our laps. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you don't. Gosh, you almost have to remind yourself. He's already started 5 Super Bowls. Like
Yeah. It's
people
incredible.
want to see Josh Allen play in a Super Bowl once and then take it from there. Maybe more come on, but it's that quest to get Buffalo into the Super Bowl so Josh has a chance to be on that stage. You feel like he deserves that chance. It hasn't
Hmm.
happened yet. But in Patrick's case, he's already been there 5 times.
Yeah.
He started 5 Super Bowls. He just turned 30 in September. And he's already declared he wants to play into his 40s. So again, you at face value, you might think, what's he been in 3, 4 Super Bowls? No, he's been in 5. He's won 3 MVPs, which ties him with with Montana
Yeah.
and Brady. So
Yeah.
you you just almost the sum of his work is extraordinary, and he's maybe about to approach the middle of it.
Yep.
I think he's still on the front nine. I think he's on
Yeah.
holes 7 or 8 right now, would be my guess. And
100%.
you know, he's 5 under through six at least. Okay.
It's a good way to put it. Games in Buffalo. I'm curious, just your feeling on Buffalo, and you've been there a lot this in the last few years, obviously. But you know they played big games in Buffalo for a long time. I'm curious, just Buffalo as an entity, as a energy, as a place where you're walking through the parking lot 3 hours before the game, and everybody's there and everybody's locked in. Explain to me calling a big game in Buffalo.
It feels like a throwback to me. We know this is the last year of this version of Highmark Stadium, Old Rich Stadium, whatever. It had all these different names through the years. Um, I've loved doing games there. Interesting, our booth used to be kind of down on the left side 20. You always think of the network broadcast booth being
Yeah.
right down to 50. That was not always the case. And you when you arrive, sometimes to get to the game, it's not the easiest stadium to access by car. Now
Yeah.
we have some great guys that drive us, and sometimes we'll go on the back of the bus, the first bus for the opposing team. Their escort, and we'll be riding right behind them, which is a hoot. I got to tell you, it's one of the craziest things because you're going through neighborhoods
Yeah.
and you're seeing more birds flipped in the air than you've ever seen in your life. The vitriol before the game, the greeting to the opposing team. You wonder, of course, the tinted windows on the bus. You can't tell whether they see anything or not, but they got to be watching and laughing. They're not throwing anything at them, so I'll give them that. But it is an interesting case in human study, watching the way the fans see the opposing team come in, and now we're riding right behind it, so they think we're part of this deal too. Except we're in a suburban, and we're getting flipped off too. And I kind of just want to like hide under the dash, and but I enjoy that ride in. I do. I get to be so stoked just to watch the intensity of all this and watch fans be fans. They are great fans, and by
Yeah.
the way, they're not the only ones that would greet the opposing team bus that way. So I'm not
I
out.
agree.
No, I'm not outing them. We know how much Buffalo means to their community, and I love doing games there. We drop in. There's a couple of standby old restaurants that are on our short list of our favorites in America. And everywhere you go, the town is all about that team and that game. I think the love affair, I don't want to rank them, but the love affair between the Bills Mafia and that football program, there's nothing bigger. I could probably put 3 or 4 that are on the same line, but it is their identity, and
Yeah.
I'm going to miss the old stadium.
Me too.
Right now, if I look at it, just the way the back half of the schedule looks, I'm not sure we have another game at Buffalo,
Mm.
and we we kind of have a pretty good idea where we're going through
Yeah.
week 17, anyways, not set in stone, and then you got the playoffs.
Right.
We don't even know right now. They're not even in first place technically. New England leads the division. So, do they get a home game? You got to think there's a great chance they will. Would our team get that home game? You never know how that gets parceled out. So, I'm going into this with a little bit of sentimentality to the fact that I've been doing games there in some capacity since the 1980s when I first went there to work uh, on CBS Radio with Hank Strand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did a lot of games for years with Hank on CBS Radio Network and Pat Hayden and John Dockery. Blast from the past. We had a lot of Buffalo games. This was back in the Jim Kelly,
Yeah.
Art Levy, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed. And yeah, I've got a lot of memories there. I just thought of one. I mean, I'm not going to get us back off track on this, but when my mother passed away in October of 2022, I had a game in Buffalo a few days down the road from that, and I did the same thing you're doing right now. I came to the conclusion she would definitely want me to be doing this game, and um, it was. I'm not going to kid you. It was a great distraction for the 3 hours I was lulled into doing the game. But leading up to it, a lot of emotion. And listen, we're all human. We all feel these things. But I did it. And I walked into the booth that day, and there was Brandon Bean,
Mm.
and there were three or four other members of the Bills executive team. And I walked into the booth, and they all were in black suits, and they were there just to say, "Hey, we're sorry. We feel your loss." And they shook my hand and patted me on the shoulder, gave me a hug, and I went and called the game. But I just thought, yeah, they're very attuned to people's
Yeah.
feelings. And Tony said something on the air, which I didn't want him to do that, but he did. And completely unrelated. I mean, it was never said on the air. And I think you know that when my father passed away, I took my lifetime work, tried to open and help finance and start the greatest Alzheimer's Research Institute. And that was the mission. And it's been open now 15 years, and it's named for him. It's called the Nantz National Alzheimer's Center. It's down at the Texas Medical Center in Houston. Well, Tony made just a little brief mention of it on the air that my mom had passed. Within a few days, I had over 50 people that somehow found that link to the Nantz National Alzheimer's Center at Houston Methodist Hospital who sent in a donation. And
That's
all it
amazing.
said, it had their names, and it said Bill's Mafia.
That's amazing.
Who does that? The Buffalo fans do.
That's amazing.
I'll never let go of how much that meant to me. That it wasn't like it was printed somewhere that someone would
Yeah.
know the backstory of the work that we put into the Nance Center in honor of my dad. But people up there, you've heard the stories in the past. You might remember
Yep.
the Andy
Andy
Dalton
Dalton. Yeah.
touchdown pass and how they funded Andy's charity years ago. Amazing, amazing people there. So when I walk into this booth on Sunday, maybe it's the last time I'll be at that
Wow.
one, at that stadium. And I'm going to think back to one of my first games was an AFC championship game. This might have been early 90s, but it was the Raiders against the Bills in the
Mm.
AFC title game. And the final was 51-3, Buffalo. It was the same day the Giants played the 49ers
Yeah.
and Barr kicked the field goal at the end uh, to set up the Giants against the Bills in Super Bowl 25. So that would have been right around what 1991, 92
Yeah.
season, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You know
Yeah.
what? I
Because
called that game, Kev, on CBS Radio. It was with either Pat Hayden or Hank Stram. And I went to the Buffalo airport. We were the early game on Championship Sunday, and U.S. Air had a flight from Buffalo to New York. I got in my seat. I'm 2D, 2C is O.J. Simpson,
oh my goodness.
and I had seen O.J. around on the celebrity golf circuit, so I knew him a
Yeah.
little bit. And Buffalo had just won big, and he had been part of the NBC broadcast crew.
Right.
He was flying commercial, back to New York, and I happened to have a seat next to him. And we're wondering the whole time what's going on with the Giants 49ers game. Now remember, time and place, there's no internet, there's no Wi-Fi
Right.
on the
Right.
plane. This is way before that. So we got on the ground at LaGuardia, pulled to a gate, and OJ said, I have a membership in the airline club. You remember OJ used to do a
Yeah,
commercial
yeah,
where he's
yeah.
running through an airport. The two of us ran through the airport up to the second floor, and we went into the U.S. Air Lounge and got there just in time to see the winning kick. And
That's
we shared that
incredible.
together. So, you give me a stadium and you give me a little time to think about it. I can these things that have been in my head for a long time that needed a place to go. And I needed to drop that story and dispense it and move on. But haven't thought about that in 30 years.
That's incredible. I have only one OJ story, and it's that it was so I went to school in Miami and I worked for this newspaper, the Sun Sentinel, and I really love golf. And the Q school, there was a Q school or PG, it was some tournament. Um, Gosh, it may have just been a web.com Corn Ferry type deal. But somebody was getting their tour card. I forget what the actual event was. I had to go interview this guy. He was from Palm Beach, and I'm going up to the 18th green, and there's some and the leader puts his ball in the water, and somebody is running around to the membership. This is at a club it wasn't in Doral, it was in Western Dade County. Somebody is going around updating everybody on what the scores are, and I turn around and it's OJ Simpson. He is just sitting there at a web.com event, Corn Ferry, whatever you want to call it back then, and he was the most into it I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was just like, this is a very, very bizarre thing. And then we went inside after the event. He went, it was the day of the first international game, Dolphins versus Giants ever. And he just sat there, and I was hungry too. And I just sat there next to OJ Simpson watching the Giants Dolphins game 2007. And I barely said anything to him, but it was the most bizarre thing. And it was very strange. Obviously, the last 20, 30 years of his life, just how he was still a public figure in Miami, and he was just around and just watching football. And that was it. That's the only time I was ever on OJ Simpson.
Yeah, your encounter with him um, obviously was on the backside
Yeah,
of
very different.
of
Very
the
different.
story, and I was on the front side. Yeah.
Very different. All right. We're at Omaha Productions here. You called a lot of Peyton Manning games. We're going to start here. Kind of the same question as Mahomes. Um, he's sitting there. He's doing all his checks. He's getting everybody in line, getting the slot receiver to come half a yard in. Did it ever annoy you, Jim Nantz? Did it ever annoy you, Peyton
Oh
Manning checking at the line?
no, not a bit. No, it didn't a bit. But they I was there when the whole Omaha craze
Oh yeah,
began, and it was you have to understand. When you got the air pods in
yeah,
your earbuds, but when you have a headset, it completely freezes out the rest of the world, and
yeah,
it's so amplified. That's why most of long-term broadcasters have hearing loss, which I do have a little bit,
hmm.
for sure, because it's being pumped so into your eardrums. So it's so amplified. The first time he
Hmm.
said Omaha, I thought, oh, did he just said Omaha? What in the world does that mean? And I think we had their game the next week.
Yep,
We asked him to explain that, but no, there was a lot of quirkiness.
yeah,
But I always looked at Peyton like this. He's so smart,
yeah,
and he was such a chess master. I mean, he came to the line and he could look over the defense. He knew exactly where he needed to go. It's whatever. It's one of the great chess masters of the world, um, Bobby Fischer of yesteryear,
yeah.
sitting down and saying, "Oh, just looks at a board, plays in a park, but makes a move, goes to the next table, makes a move, goes to the next." That was Pete. He just had to get everybody lined up into the right position, and you know what? That's how he is in real
Yeah,
life.
it
I know
is.
him really well. He's
No.
a really good friend. Really
Yep.
special,
Is
special man.
amazing, amazing
Amazing guy.
person.
Amazing guy. And he sees everything and he's
Yep.
on top of it and he efforts everything. And he's really good about everything that he touches. And
Yep.
that not only includes business, but his friendships too. So he's A plus plus.
Yep. I've always said this. People ask me if his arm fell off when he was 15 years old, he'd still be a Fortune 500 CEO. Like he's
Oh,
just such a
100%.
smart person, and he's so thorough, and he's so on it, and he understands it, and the amount of handwritten notes. I mean, he's just incredible. And that's not me saying that because I work for Omaha Productions. That's just me being around him and understanding that. What did he say when you asked him about Omaha the next week?
I can't, it's
Yeah.
been early all, but he had come up with that name as a code word to
Yep.
set formation and to try to also to deceive a defense. I do regret that I didn't get to see more of his regular season games. Now we
Yeah.
did a great many of them, but not at the pace that like we have Kansas City on our crew. We just had
Yeah.
Kansas City last week. We had them against Baltimore. We got them this week. We got them coming up against Denver. Potentially the game against Indianapolis hasn't been assigned yet. We got them on Thanksgiving Day against Dallas. So I see a steady diet of the Chiefs. When Peyton was playing at Indy, just the market being a little bit landlocked and
Yeah.
the AFC South matchups not always being super attractive on the other side of that matchup, there were years where we barely saw him. There was actually a year that he went to the AFC Championship game, and I was working with the great Phil Simms at that time.
Of
We
course.
didn't see the Colts until the AFC title game.
It's incredible.
How's that possible? So the big marquee matchups for them ended up going to prime time or whatever.
Yeah.
We
Yeah. Yeah.
lost them. And then again, the divisional games weren't there enough for it to carry as our A game.
Yeah.
Now, take New England though, and during Tom's time, I mean, I was at Gillette some years
Yeah.
for at least half of the home games. When I add in playoff games, I could be there 6 times in a season, plus road games. I did over 100 games of Tom's and Belichick in
Yeah.
New England. Stacey James is their exceptional PR guy, still is. He one time looked it up, and I had 102 games. So that number expanded once he went to Tampa, and I got to run that up to probably about 108. But that was about 1/3 of Tom's career in New England, that is.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of production meetings, a lot of times trying to tell a story that sounds fresh, new. They keep on winning, but you have to have what the latest thoughts are on all the players and coaches, and it's a challenge. It was like my Tiger Woods days during Tiger's dynasty.
Yeah.
Just how do you make it fresh? He won 57 of his 82 tour wins were on CBS. I was there for all of those 57 and 9 of his majors. So it's a challenge. I like the challenge, though. I love the challenge. You haven't asked me about Josh yet and his style, because that's
Yeah.
that's big too. He's got his own
Yeah.
very cool way of
Yep.
of delivering the goods. We talked about how improvisational
Yeah.
Patrick is. Well, Josh has that too. I mean, he can spin out of a sack and brush people off with the best of them, and spin around and hurdle
Yep.
and just flat run over people. And his passing from where he was when he first came into the league to where it is now, just it's amazing commitment he made to getting the position refined to where he was the MVP a year ago. So they're two extraordinary talents. They're a little bit different,
Yeah.
but they both have the ability to make things up on the fly. And that's what makes some of these plays so brilliant. His 4th-and-2 run last
Yep.
year in the regular season matchup against Kansas City. I mean, that was a really critical time in that game. I called it on the spot. I called it the play of the year in the NFL. 1 week after I called the Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels to Noah Brown, I still thought it was the play of the year because the game was so big. And
Yeah.
it was part of the reason that was part of the reason why he went on to win the MVP, I believe.
There's two things about it. Number one, the Mahomes thing. You mentioned the baseball thing. He attributes so much of the baseball. Like he does. He told me once. I just wrote the Ringer 5 years ago. He does long toss pregame. It's all baseball. Like there's just so much baseball that goes on there. And his dad told me an amazing story, which is that when he was younger, they used to go in his backyard. He'd throw a ball, and then they had to go find. They went to a little league field, and he'd throw a ball, and they were like, "This isn't big enough." And he kept going to bigger and bigger fields until he eventually just went to a football field, and that's where he ended up because a baseball field couldn't hold his arm. The other thing with Josh is we talked about the multi-sport stuff. He did gymnastics as a kid, he told me. He did swimming as a kid, he told me. And so a lot of that stuff when he's on the open field, it's quarterback plus an institutional memory of all of these basketball, all of this stuff. It's all into this 6'6", unicorn, and it's really incredible to see. All right, last thing for you. We do a thing called badasses. It's the most badass person you've ever been around in football. Could be a player, could be someone in the booth, could be somebody in any of your walks of life. Where are you going, Jim Nantz?
Just one.
Just one.
Mike Ditka,
Beautiful.
the coach. 3 years. He sat right off my left shoulder on the NFL Today set. And, Mike, he just has that look that he's a tough guy. And I love Mike Ditka. And those were cherished times. But people would approach him. It
Yeah.
wasn't like he was smiling and warm and engaging and out bro hugging and high fiving everyone. But people come up and say hello to Mike. He was kind to everyone.
Yeah.
But he had a toughness about him that you saw it as a player, and then you're too young to remember, but when he was a coach and as a broadcaster. But I'll tell you how badass he was. We did 20 weeks a year of the NFL Today,
Hmm.
17 weeks of the regular season, wild card divisional AFC championship. And then, of course, if we had the Super Bowl, it'd be 21 weeks. I noticed when Mike would come to New York, sometimes I go and pick him up and we go play golf on a Friday. And we go out to dinner Friday night. Saturday we had meetings with our team. And Sunday we do the show. Spent a lot of time with Mike. I noticed early on that all he carried were $100 bills. All he did was peel off C notes all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Buy a beer at the bar on the way out to dinner. Yeah, can I just, yeah, give me a Budweiser. $100, keep the change. Coat check. Comes into a restaurant, comes out, $100. Man on the street, homeless. There was one guy that kind of understood the routine and he was there every week. Mike paid every time. $100 bill.
Oh my
I
God.
finally got up the nerve to say, hey, coach, why don't you ever get change? why just the hondos? He says, hey, what's the difference anyway? He said,
Oh,
the way I look at it, when I die and they drop me down into the ground, I hope there's a little opening in that coffin. And my last $100 bill comes flying out and goes up into the sky and drifts away. That would make me happy. So I said, this gets a little pricey, doesn't it? It's not that bad, Jim. He said, here's the way I rationalize it in my head. We got 20 weeks. I come every single Friday to New York. I come in with 50 $100 bills, $5,000. And at the end of the season, I'm spending $100,000. I've allocated $100,000 to the football season to go enjoy myself in New York. And that's the way it is. I take 5,000 in cash in hundreds every single week. And that's what he did.
you just that first of all, it's amazing. You just unlocked another memory my dad and I have, which is we were in Chicago in summer, I want to say 97. My parents worked for the Orlando Sentinel, which is owned by the Tribune Company, so we had to go there for some
Yeah.
Tribune thing. And Mike Ditka was in the lobby of the hotel we were staying at. And as you can imagine, there were I don't know how word got out. These autograph hounds, they will find you. They will find you. They will find out where you are, and they will be in the lobby. Okay. And my dad and I saw Mike Ditka, and my dad had a camera, and he said, "You got to go take a photo. You got to go get an autograph from Mike Ditka. Got to get an autograph from Mike Ditka." Well, the problem was there were 80 people who were ready to sell Mike Ditka autographs, and Mike Ditka did not like this one bit. And it was just people at the elevator bank, people bothering him. So Mike walked past them, didn't do anything, and then he grabbed me. And he grabbed me and my dad, and he took us around the corner, and he said, "I'm gonna take a photo with you," because he wanted to get away from the autograph hounds, and he saw that I was not one of those. And so Coach Ditka took us into the hallway, and I actually saw the photo. We'll get it up here in a second. Because my mom sent me the photo the other day. And so you just unlocked another thing. And the one thing, Jim, to wrap up is that in the last 48 hours, you don't realize how many memories you have with your dad until you listen. You know, you're listening to the song and it mentions San Francisco, and you remember, then, all of a sudden you're thinking of this. You're thinking of the Giants game you went to. You're thinking of, oh, you're mentioning New York, or you're thinking of New Year's Eve. I mean, it's just one thing that is almost a blessing in that regard is that your brain is just releasing all of these new memories, or sorry, remembering all of these old memories, and like we were saying earlier, I think that's going to last for a lifetime.
It's never going away. And I'm so glad we landed on Mike Ditka, because that is a very fitting way to be able to close this interview, is that memory of your dad patiently waiting with you and Mike recognizing this is the greatness of Mike Ditka, recognizing you guys were not out there as sellers, just trying to take an autograph and benefit financially from it. You guys were real. And he pulled you over, you got that picture, and you were already talking about that picture in the
Yeah.
last 48 hours. Amazing.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this. This is not a normal episode, but this was amazing.
Honored to be on with you at any time, but especially at this time. Right there.
Thank you, buddy.
See you, my friend. God bless you and your family.